In this session, we are going to be talking about a revenue explosion, apparently, and growing your market share in a more diverse market that might offer more opportunity than you previously thought. So with me today, I've got some great panelists, as I said. So first of all, I'll just go down the lineup. So we have Gregg Kaminsky, who is the founding partner of Our Family Vacations. We can clap. All about the audience participation. We've got Tyronne Stoudemire, who's the Global VP of Diversity and Inclusion at Hyatt Hotels. Thank you. And we've got Rick Stiffler, who's the VP of Leisure Sales at Preferred Hotels and Resorts. And finally, we have Darren Burn, fellow Brit, who's the founder and MD of Out of Office and the managing director of TravelGay.com. So yeah. Can we just have a final whoop for everyone? Woo! So just so the panel can introduce themselves in better words than I can. Do we want to just go down and everyone can just say who you are, how long you've been in the business, and what you're specializing in right now?
All right. Hello, everyone. Is this on? My name's Gregg Kaminsky. I'm one of the founders of Our Family Vacations. I've been in LGBT travel for 23 years now. Our company hosts vacations for LGBT families. But in the past couple of years, we've also expanded. We do we call them adult-only vacations. We do some river cruise charters. We're doing our first trip to Thailand this year. And we do many groups on large cruise ships as well.
Good morning, I'm Tyronne Stoudemire, Global Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion for Hyatt Hotel Corporation. Hyatt is about 100,000 employees, more than 60 countries, with about 20 brands. Very excited. I've been at Hyatt for 5 years, leading the charge of helping to create a strategy across the entire enterprise for diversity and inclusion in 3 components: the workforce, the workplace, and the marketplace, to provide insights and to provide strategies to advance the work across all demographics around the world.
Hi, I'm Rick Stiffler, the Vice President of Leisure Sales for Preferred Hotels and Resorts. I've been with Preferred Hotels almost 19 years. Started when I was 15. 16. What do you think of amber lighting for? But if you know, Preferred Hotels and Resorts is the largest independent brand in the world, 750 hotels in 85 countries. About 9 years ago, I created a program within the company called Preferred Pride, primarily for 2 reasons. One, to create an additional marketing platform for our hotels who wanted to be more engaged and outreach to the LGBT community, but also qualify them with regards to LGBT diversity training. It's pretty much more walk the walk, talk the talk. Be engaged in the community, give back to the community. We have special Preferred Pride rates that we have out in the system, which generated over $24 million so far. And the other... on the rate code, there was one way to get engaged, and the other side was more of a personal. As a gay man working in luxury travel for over 20 years and traveling to a lot of my fabulous hotels and other hotels around the world, I saw very little advertising and marketing to me. I think sometimes we fall into a 5-star, 5-diamond. We accept everybody, we welcome everybody, which most of the times that is true. But it doesn't always mean that you're also an official gay welcoming hotel and you want my money, but I don't see me or my friends or my family in any of your marketing websites or collateral. So for me, I wanted to kind of change that with our brand, in which we have.
My name's Darren Burn, a fellow Brit, as Ellen said. I founded outofoffice.com about 4 years ago. Again, a bit of a passion project, really. I was a journalist for 10 years before that and saw a gap in the market for the LGBT market not being catered for properly in the luxury sphere, particularly. So outofoffice.com is a tailor-made travel operator based in the UK, but actually 70% of our clients are over here in the US, which is great. We send people all over the world on personalised packages. And then last year, we bought TravelGay.com, which is the world's most visited visited LGBT travel website, you Google gay Mykonos, gay Bangkok, anything you can think of, it comes up number one, which is great. All organic traffic. We don't pay a penny to market that brand, but it's just very well respected. And it's a really good guide for people when they're traveling to places, whether they're looking for the best bar or club or restaurant or obviously hotel. And we give personal recommendations. Every single one of our hotels has got an individual description that we write, that we review basically to give it a seal of approval. And that's where travelgay.com comes in very helpful for LGBT traveller.
So in this panel, we're kind of going to talk about how embracing diversity and inclusion can really go up the ante for you. But first off, I thought it would be interesting to hear from Darren about who the typical LGBTQ plus traveller is, or if indeed there is a typical LGBTQ plus traveller.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. There isn't, and that's one of the problems that a lot of brands find, is that it's very difficult to try and pigeonhole anyone and come up with a generic marketing strategy when everyone is so different. But I think that's also a benefit as well, because you're therefore treating the LGBT traveller no different to anyone else that you're marketing to as well. And I think that's really important. A lot of people get very bogged down in thinking that it's a massively different audience to market to, and we're not really. As a lot of you will know in the room, and those of you that don't yet know and are here to learn, we're no different to other travellers in lots of ways. And I think it's about, as Rick said, finding that personalisation and being, approached in a personal way. So, we have travellers as diverse as, 22-year-olds who are using travelgay.com to 80-year-olds who are using Out of Office to go on that really luxury round the world trip. And I think, it's really important that one of the things that I often say is don't assume anything about the traveller or the person that is coming to your resort, because often you'll make a mistake. And actually trying to be personal to an individual is if you do that all the time, you're standing yourself in really good stead.
I think it's also important to tie into that is that the LGBTQ market is not a trackable market. Even though we put a rate code out there or put a promotion out there, the thing is you're already getting LGBTQ business. It's already at your hotel, coming to your properties or your cruises. It's how do you get more? And it's taking those steps and putting that out there to send the message that you are a welcoming property or supplier, and to bring more of that business in and taking the right steps and the best practices to make that happen.
I would just to add to that, a place of, there is no one size fit all, right? We're very different, different walks of life, and we come from the power. Our worldview shapes our beliefs and our behaviors. So people have a more wider global view now, right? So you can't pitch at someone and says that they only behave this way, do this. There's stereotypes and there's archetypes. Stereotype says that we all behave a certain way. Archetype says we have a tendency to behave a certain way. It's looking at the tendencies that play out in the applied community, and how do you leverage that to go after that particular market without reinforcing stereotypes. Yeah. I think people think they hang the flag and we've done it, check the box. It goes beyond the rainbow.
Yeah.
And when you're selling LGBT travel, I think it's important to think in broad terms. When we started, we set out to create vacations for gay parents and lesbian parents with kids. And then what we really saw who showed up was gay couples with their straight friends and gay teens with straight parents. And so, now when we think of LGBT family, it's way much bigger than what we even set out to do.
Yeah.
So think in broad terms.
I mean, I spoke a little bit about the rise of centennials on Tuesday, and I think that, going beyond what it means to be LGBTQ+, if you kind of embody these brands and you kind of, these values, you also attract, the allies and the people who want to align themselves with the community and, make things better and shout loud and proud on behalf of other people too. But so we've probably talked quite a lot about how LGBTQ+ is good for business, right? So does anyone have any kind of tangible examples of, brands or hotels or, a cruise liner that's doing great things for LGBT inclusion and how that's impacted business?
So 2 cruise lines that we work with, I feel, go above and beyond. One is Celebrity Cruises. They actually came to us and said, we want to do more than just take out an ad. So Celebrity does pride events fleet-wide in June across every single cruise ship. They host LGBT groups. We've hosted them for them. And then they listen. If we have an issue or, I just did a large LGBT group a couple months ago, and we had an issue that some of our women kept getting called sir. So I went back to Celebrity and we set up a call and they listened, and they definitely go above and beyond. And then Uniworld, who we work with, sort of same thing. Uniworld first went through Hospitable Me. So every single Uniworld employee has been trained by our buddies who are presenting later. And they also now host with us full LGBT charters on their own that they promote, they sell on their website directly to the community.
So we have at Hyatt 7 diversity business resource groups, and our Pride group is one. And our focus for 2019 and beyond is to focus on the B in diversity business resource groups. So it's all about the business. And this year we got together and we talk about, we have a summit at the beginning of the year to establish our goals and where we want to go. We look at workforce, workplace, and marketplace. And our Pride group got together and did some the due diligence to put together a business case to be a sponsor for Worldwide Pride. Right, and we went into the meeting with our chief commercial officer and the executive sponsors, and we were going after, we wanted a $50,000 sponsorship, right? We just wanted to be a part of, it was the 50th anniversary of Stonewall, and we wanted to be present as a Pride group. And after sharing the business case and the impact on it, we walked away with being the premium sponsor for this event with a 3-year commitment of $300,000 because the commitment was there. And it's beyond, that's the bottom line, but we'll have over 350 colleagues and their family members and guests to join us in the parade next week. It goes far beyond. And now we have a client meeting to have a conversation with our clients about how we can go from best practices to next practices in advancing the work of the Pride Traveler. So the impact of it, I think there's awareness, right? If we raise awareness, then there's integration, and then there's transformation. If we integrate into the mainstream all the systems that are in place as we advance the talent, as we advance the traveler, as we chance the experience, we're more likely to get to more sustainability.
I think a lot of brands have really stepped up the game recently, and but going back in the day, you look at Kimpton Hotels that kind of like spearheaded the way of being involved in the community, and everyone just kind of tapped on after that. But I do know Hyatt's been doing some great ads, Hilton, Marriott with the transgender ads. And I like that other luxury brands are coming, realizing the importance and the value of the advertising, marketing, and the inclusion of LGBT into their market. Belmont's done a great job of creating their LGBT program on their websites and an advisory board. And it's nice to see that we can go in, and I'm looking at consumer publications and going and seeing the luxury brands advertising these where they weren't so much before. And I've seen a definitely a shift of that, but I think there's still a lot of room of improvement.
I think I'm going to give a kind of small level example compared to those massively amazing examples. But 3 examples stand out for me of kind of real life experiences I've seen. One was just in the Uber from the airport on the way from JFK to here the other day. The trail behind me was a rainbow flag, which I thought was really nice. Very simple, very subtle, and very easy. And it tells me that they support LGBT. But then 2 real world examples from me recently. I went to Bruges on a city break with my partner 6 months ago. And the hotel was a 5-star hotel. I won't name the brand, but we checked in and the note in the room said, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Burn." And I deliberately hadn't told them in advance we were coming. And again, it's about that assumption. And I felt really, it was such a simple mistake, but it kind of set us off in a really bad tone. And the woman that showed us to our room, she said, "I'm so sorry about the note." And she felt really awkward about it. And all they need to do is say, if they're not sure, "Dear Mr. Burn and guest." That would have covered it. It wouldn't have been a problem, and it wouldn't have become an issue, and I wouldn't have tweeted about it. And the other example of a time that I thought it was done really well was at a hotel in Mexico where went up to the bar, and on the bar it had a little note which just said, "We welcome everyone regardless of their gender, race, and sexual orientation." That was all it took for me to go, wow, this property is welcoming. It was that simple. And it's little things like that, little touches. It doesn't have to be multi-million pound budgets. It can be those little subtle touches that really make a difference.
Yeah, so we were talking beforehand about kind of, especially around Pride season, it does tend to be, people, brands jump on the bandwagon a little bit and turn their logo rainbow. And you do have to obviously embody what you're changing your logo to. But can we have little small examples like that? And do they mean things like just like literally having a rainbow flag at your front desk? Do you think that is like a good place to start? Or how can we kind of,
Start somewhere is what I'd say. It doesn't have to be big. It can be those small things.
Well, we were talking about that earlier, yesterday. I think it's when you're looking at different dynamics and different age ranges, from a millennial to a Gen X to a baby boomer, the rainbow flag means different things. Yes, you have to go a lot way from what we did back in the 90s, just using rainbow flag all over the place. Your marketing needs to change. You need to be creative on it. If you can't use authentic imagery, be creative on what you're putting out there that sends that message that this is for the LGBTQ consumer. At the same time, that rainbow flag still means a lot to a lot of people, and it's also a universal symbol around the world that when you travel, a lot of us travel to places we haven't been, we're discovering new areas, but when you see that rainbow flag on a bar, on a restaurant, it does make you feel that you're accepting and welcoming. So still utilizing that a lot is important. And I think just right now it's just pride overload. We're hosting World Pride. I know we were talking to some people last night at the party, and they're like, oh, the corporations are just everywhere. I wish they do this year round. It's, yes, wish we do it this year round, but the fact that they're doing it means something. And it's like you said, just starting out little is saying you're making that effort, and then you just build on it from there.
Yeah.
Diversity and inclusion is not a destination, it's a journey. And we didn't get it overnight. We're gonna resolve this over time. There's an evolution of there's your innovators, there's your early adapters, and your late adapters. And your late adapters are sitting on the sideline waiting for something to happen before I join it because I don't want to take the risk. So I think it's that journey we have to continue to move forge ahead, go beyond the flag. The flag is very important as it's articulated, but then what's next, right? How do we do it? And so example that I've been able to influence our leadership to do, leadership is very important. And our CEO recently signed, it's been a year now, under the world of understanding that we would not allow hate groups to convene at our hotels. So you talk about money and you talk about that we were actually saying that's the stand that, again, beyond the rainbow is taking that hard stand to say that it's not about the money, it's about doing right. We're a purpose-driven organization. Our purpose is to care for people to be their best. And if we want people to be their best and we want to care, we've got a place of empathy. And that's where inclusion comes from. It's a personal action. So taking that stand, and our CEO got a ton of, negative press completely. People, our stockholders complained, investors complained. He's turned firm, and he knew going into it that he was going to get it. But on the other side, there were individuals that says, I appreciate you doing that. I'm really glad that you took a stand as a leader. We had a parent to call that's here in New York that she and her son will be joining us in the parade. Called and says, my son has gone through the transition and at 16 has had a very difficult time. And to know that a corporation is standing behind this, can he march with us in the parade? Sure he can, absolutely. And he's going to be on top of the float, right? Those are the type of things, those symbolic symbols will help move us along on our journey, and they're defining moments, but we have to support each other. I was encouraging, all of our partners to send our CEO a note and say, hey, you did the right thing. And this is what it means to me. Encourage our colleagues to send him a note because those are defining moments and he's taking a risk.
Yeah.
Right, and that was a financial risk for us. And we've had to activate it, and we've turned down business, and we've taken a stand. But we have a vetting process in place that our sales force starts it off, and it goes to the task force and our diversity council, our BRG. So it's a collective effort that we are actually doing this, and so it's just not a fly-by-night thing. And that's going to afford us great opportunities to move other cultures along on the continuum as well.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to add that, many of us in the room are travel advisors, and, most hotel brands or cruise lines, they want to be inclusive. But if you're a travel advisor, you need to do your job. Don't wait for the hotel or the cruise line. What happened to Darren, if he, an agent could have stopped that. So, send a letter to the hotel from you as an agent that has Mr. or Mr. so they see it. Or, any cruise that I book, the one thing that an LGBT cruiser wants to see is they want the bed type set up. They're spending the same money. And so as a travel advisor, that's your job to double check to make sure that when they walk in that room as a couple, 2 men or 2 women, that the bed type is correct. So, don't just wait for the hotel or cruise line. As a travel advisor, we need to be proactive as well.
I just want to tie into that. I think back to your point earlier where you just mentioned, we tolerated that a little bit back years ago. We're not tolerating it anymore, especially when you have that information's provided. I think from a hotel's perspective, you need to be paying attention to detail. It's not always LGBTQ. It's paying attention to detail to those clients that are walking in that door. If you got, you can't assume that someone's part of the community, 2 men walking in, it could be best friends, it could be a father son, it could be a couple. I tell my hotels all the time, do not even suggest anything about bedding. If something's wrong with that reservation, they'll let you know when they're checking in. But it is about paying attention to detail. So are you informing your housekeepers that you got 2 men that are 6'3" that's are going into your room? Maybe it turned down, make sure there's 2 large robes, 2 large slippers, extra male toiletries. If you are saying you're a gay welcoming hotel, is your concierge educated? So if I go ask them, is there a gay bar in the neighborhood? Yeah. Do you have that information, or do you got to to go look that up, because if you've got to look it up, you're making me question and feel uncomfortable about even asking that question. Do you have a local gay map you might give me if I ask? Well, sure, here's a map of the New York City, and here's all the great little spots to go. How do you handle complaints if you have a family come up and someone says there's two men kissing or holding hands at the pool? It makes me uncomfortable. How do you handle that complaint? And so I just think for a big part for, like, especially in hotels, is that the education's got to go beyond the front desk and the front check-in. I mean, part of Preferred Pride, what we do every single year is work with community marketing. And Tom, who you saw yesterday, we work with them every single year to do LGBT hospitality diversity training. And we encourage them to participate in the webinars. We send the webinars to the hotels. I can't control and mandate everything as an independent brand, but we go in and said, please share that with every aspect of your hotel, because it's not just the front desk. It needs to be shared with your housekeeping. It needs to be shared with the back end, your concierge, because it's your hotel. And if you are a gay welcoming hotel, you need to mean that. It's different than just putting a flag up and that's it.
I mean, you literally stole my next question. Which
Sorry about that.
How can we ensure that LGBTQ diversity training goes beyond the front desk? Does anyone else have anything to add?
So I actually want to build on that. The evolution of diversity I've talked about, but it's also the training. There was a point in time that tolerance training was acceptable. Right? That's a bad word. Turn to the person next to you and say, I'm tolerating you. Who wants to be tolerated?
Yeah.
Right? We're not talking about how do we accept people who they are and how we give them the right tools to be successful. So I think it is training, but again, it's not just a silver bullet. It's the behaviors that needs to change. And we talk about from tolerance and sensitivity to cross-cultural competence. We define cross-cultural competence as the ability to discern and take into account one other worldviews to be able to seize problems and resolve conflicts in a way to be able to outperform the competition and to care for people to be their best. Right, so it's really a skill that's required. Cross-cultural competence is one of the top 10 competencies required to do business in a global economy. So the more we're understanding of other cultures and other backgrounds, more likely to create more creative solutions to outperform the competition. So when companies don't take that on and train their colleagues to be able to do that, they're just tolerating. If you walk up to concierge and the concierge can't tell you where a gay bar is, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a sign of tolerance. So being able to start down in front desk, this also starts with hiring. We had a recent experience that we had 15 interns, and one of our interns came in from a Bible college. And when she was assigned her desk, she was assigned her desk to two people of our two colleagues that were gay, and they had their desks colored with the flag, and she did not come back to work the next day. She didn't come back because the values, the shared Christian values was there. Now, one of our leaders, let's call her back, let's talk to convince her. No, we're not convincing her. Right? This is who we are as an organization. This is our culture. We'll respect her and respect that she's tendered her resignation. Right? We have to accept that. There's defining moments that people are afraid when you talk about hiring, when you talk about leaders who don't comply. We have to challenge those behaviors. If leaders are showing behaviors of exclusion, we have to call those things out. We cannot allow that to happen. And when it gets contagious. And I believe as hospitality and being the second largest and oldest institution in the world, we have a responsibility to lead in this space. We touch people more than anyone else. So if we don't understand and don't get it, how can we expect others to follow?
Yeah.
There's a hotel in India that we heard about recently where it didn't translate from management down to housekeeping, basically, and two guys checked in there, and every morning, it was the kind of twin beds that are pushed together, in a lot of hotels, but every morning they'd come back to their room and the housekeeper will have separated the beds out, and it was happening every single day. Every single day. And actually, when we probed into it and was asking the hotel a bit more about it, we found out that it wasn't anything to do with homophobia, it wasn't anything to do with lack of training, it was just an ignorance. There was no knowledge. The housekeeper couldn't understand why the beds were pushed together, so she did her job and separated them out. And that's all it came down to. And actually, that was again a very simple fix. If the hotel management had actually made sure that cascaded down to every level of the staff in that establishment.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, kind of more anecdotally, so I think Jackie in her opening speech on Tuesday mentioned that LGBTQ plus people are also far more likely to talk about not only their good experiences with a brand, but also their bad. I think more likely to talk about bad experiences. So how does that kind of resonate with you?
So we live in a time where social media trumps everything, right?
Yeah.
And it can happen in speed. I tell our leaders every day, we are a tweet away from a disaster. tweet away,
Yeah.
right? Get over it. Let's accept it. So the training is very important. So I think we have to use these examples as learning and teachable moments, that we no longer can push them in the backdrop. We no longer can talk about it in the back office and never come forward. We have to use these. Certainly, there's a certain amount of confidentiality. We don't want to embarrass people. We have to start with a place to assume positive intent. And as our CHRO, Malika Myers, always says, how can we help them? We have to assume that people really want to do good, right? But sometimes people are ignorant to the fact and not knowing the standard operating procedures. That's why the systems have got to be challenged. Because certain systems are put in place to protect and preserve the status quo. We have to challenge those systems and think about it. Is this a real inclusive environment for us? What policies are prohibiting us from moving forward? So we have to have ongoing conversations and dialogue about it. We just can't leave any stone unturned to figure, right, every corporation is more so now than ever. I mean, all over the place. That's a wonderful thing. But what happens after next week is over? How many people will be discriminated against? How many people will lose their jobs? How many people will not get a job? Because of that. So how do we keep that momentum going in a different way? It's forms like this. It's gatherings where we come together and share and go back and tell stories back to our corporation, say that we learned that there's some training that we can leverage. We need to make sure we're doing this. We can send a letter to the hotels in advance to make sure that we're taking care of our customers. Those are the types of things that I'm calling random acts of kindness.
I think, there's two things here. There's being proactive and reactive. And, you're right. We're all one tweet away from someone having a horrible time, but it's how you respond and how you deal with that situation. Don't be afraid to make mistakes too. We've all made mistakes. All four of us will have done that in the journey. Yes. Our Trustpilot page on Out of Office has thankfully all 5-star reviews apart from one star. And it was a mistake we made. And that one star still hurts me more than the pride I feel from all the 5 stars because,
high achiever.
Because of all the mistakes. But, people do make mistakes, but it's how you respond to those and how you deal with them. But don't be afraid to make mistakes because you will on the journey as well. Maya Angelou
said, we can apologize for what we say. We can ask forgiveness of how we make people feel, what we say to people, but how we make people feel, we can never apologize for that. So I try to, with our leaders, is that it's not also the return on the investment, it's the return on the experience. What experience are our guests having at a hotel, and what are the experience of our colleagues? If we care for our colleagues to be their best, we'll help them to care for others to be their best. So it starts at home. Yeah. It starts with us making sure that our colleagues feel like it's a safe place to come out. It's a safe place to grow in the organization. I'm not going to be frowned upon when I make a comment or talk about my partner or my significant other. Those are the types of things that we have to start internally, and it will reflect externally because now you've raised that awareness, and people will be more conscious with our guests. We were at a session in London the other day, and it was, thank God the story wasn't about our brand, but one of our top clients said that he married, adopted a son. He was traveling abroad, 15-hour flight, gets in the hotel at 1 o'clock in the morning, and he puts his cell phone down. There's a picture of him and his adopted son, and the agent said, the front desk clerk said, so what time should we expect your wife to join? Now, he had a 15-hour flight. He was tired. He did not have enough in him to even explain and to have that conversation. That carried on, and as they called upstairs, your wife, would you like to send a car for your wife? All the things that would have been normally acceptable, but they never stopped time to ask. To ask the question is what we got to seek to understand. Assume positive intent, seek to understand. I believe adults learn from an aha moment. We give them feedback. They should be able to self-correct, and the goal is to influence others and influence systems. Those systems that are prohibiting us from being moving in a more sustainable mindset.
So on that note, I spoke to everyone on the panel ahead of time because I'm super organized. And leading on from that point, so Rick, the rest of the panel were interested to know what your biggest learning has been over the recent years in like an ever-evolving market. So could you talk perhaps about, adversity that you might have overcome or, how you kept abreast of shifting moods?
Well, I did, I'm speaking, yes, I work for a brand with 750 hotels, but at the same time, you might think, you have this huge budget to work with, and that's not always the case. And I think that you can start with something small and build it and grow from there. I mean, even when I created the program, it's like I just knew this was a niche we should be focused on. This should be something we should be targeting. And this is like 10 years ago. We would think 10 years, but it was still a push at that time. And we are a family-owned company. One thing I'm proud about Preferred is that it is family-owned and operated, and they supported this initiative. And 10 years ago, not everybody was on board with it in that sense of all my hotels. We could have lost hotels about it, that they weren't agreeing with us having this type of program, but we moved forward, and it took a session of having one of our global conferences and about 300 general managers and owners at a conference and getting the platform of speaking. I called it the color of money, the value of the LGBT travel market. And once you start running some of those figures, and they're like, wow, how do we get on top? How do we start this? So we started with a very, very small budget of $20,000 to create an entire program. I mean, my advertising was $3,000, and it was me, my friends I paid $100, and then my husband coming over to style it between fashion shoots during Fashion Week in New York, and paying a photographer and shooting for free in one of my hotel lobbies and launching the campaign that way. So just the positive reaction that we received from a PR standpoint, because it was a luxury brand taking an initiative of putting two guys in an ad and putting it in their directories and putting it on their website, it was exploded. It was just, I can imagine the PR that we had. But because of that, and starting out small, we were able to grow it big. And I think the challenges of that you can think that, wow, this is just like a no-brainer. And it just took a lot of work, and it took a lot of like convincing and talking to the right people, and spinning it and getting it off the ground, which you just think it would be a no-brainer. Okay, let's just do this. So just the challenge of getting it and starting it and go. But the point of that is that you can start out with something small. Not everyone has a huge budget here. You have a small budget, but you're doing something. And from that something will grow a lot bigger.
Yeah. So Greg, you kind of tip a little bit of a scale here. So obviously cruises, you have one aspect which can be considered, family friendly. And then there's the LGBTQ market. Do these ever kind of like overlap, or what do you think is kind of more important to your customers when it comes to?
Yeah, so Tom touched on this yesterday from community marketing. Definitely, if you are buying as an LGBT family, you are looking for the family aspect of the travel before the LGBT. But the LGBT element is definitely important. So, one of the things about LGBT families is that the kids, you're not just dealing with us as adults, but the kids are also, the kids have to come out. So if you have gay or lesbian parents, you one day have to come to school and say, I have two dads, or I have one dad, or I have two moms, or one mom. So there's just sort of another layer of sensitivity when you're traveling as an LGBT family. Just safety-wise, it's not just the parents, but the kids as well. But as far as what you're buying, much more family friendly is the important thing.
Okay, cool. And kind of on a similar note, Darren, so what changes have you seen recently in terms of what your clients are looking for when they come directly to you? Are they looking for kind of like a more mainstream experience, or are they typically going for, they want to have an LGBTQ experience when they're in X, Y, Z place?
It's almost never an LGBTQ experience. It's mainstream. So we send people to Sri Lanka and the Maldives and South Africa and Mauritius. We're just doing it with a different lens. Mm-hmm. So we're just making sure that the properties we're looking at and the private guides we're using and the transfer companies we're using all understand our customer, basically. So yeah, I think, as I said at the very beginning of this session, don't think that people are, everyone is different, but actually at the end of the day, we want to travel to the same places. And, we get not a lot of flack, but a bit of flack for why do we send people to the Maldives when it's illegal to be gay? Well, my answer is, I want to go to the Maldives. Yeah. I want to visit these places. And therefore, I want to make sure that people do it in the safest possible way. So we know the hotels with the gay managers, and we know the properties that have gay staff, and we know the ones that will still do a symbolic gay wedding on the beach in the Maldives if you want it. It's all of those kind of things which are possible in these countries. And, to the point that someone made yesterday about boycotts, it is a really difficult area. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a personal supporter of boycotts. I think dialogue, as someone else said yesterday, is really important. I think where do you draw the line on boycotts? It's just the Sultan of Brunei, yes, no one wants to support him, but are you not going to go to Italy because full same-sex marriage isn't legal there yet? It's a really grey area, and there's no...
Northern Ireland.
Yeah, Northern Ireland, exactly. There's so many grey areas in this industry that we work in that I think that anyone who says that they've got a black and white answer to it is wrong. And there's never a one-size-fits-all solution. I think we just have to have that dialogue and be really honest. And like I said to you earlier, we're very honest with our customers. We'll tell them if it's illegal to be gay in a country, but we'll let them make an informed decision about where they go.
Yeah. And God, this seems completely seamless. So Tyronne, how have you found rolling out, diversity programs in locations where perhaps it may be illegal to be who you are, or even just frowned upon?
So it's real time for us, right? If we look at what's happening in Asia, particularly, we have an owner that owns 3 hotels That's a significant amount of revenue for us. But we hold dear to our values, right, and our mission and our values. So in those regions, we ensure that our Pride chapters are connected with the region outside of that region to provide support. We will transfer individuals to other hotels in a region where they're safe to make sure they're still employed. We're even now working with, we have a program called Opportunity Youth. It's called High Rise. I keep calling it Opportunity Youth. It's Rise High. And we're looking to employ unemployable youth between the ages of 16 and 24 who are not in school, not in high school, not in college, but are kind of homeless, right, in some cases. How do we take those individuals and get them to safe place, safe haven, so they can be good citizens and live a full life? It's challenging the status quo. It's staying clear to your values. It's listening and moving and taking action and not allowing them to be there. We reached out to outside counsel to make sure that was other things we were missing. We did some benchmarking with our competitors, and the real thing was to provide a safe place. Mm-hmm. And through that, we had a guest who called and reached out and says, "Listen, I'm a gay man. I'm married. I'm 40. I have a 17-year-old son. I live right in Malaysia, the heart of this, and I know that when I'm in Hyatt, I'm safe. I just want to let you know that I feel glad that your security team is there, your managers, everyone is making sure that I'm comfortable, that I'm safe, and I stay." He stays with us probably like 50 nights a year, right? And so he's very proud. But to have him to reach back to the corporate office all the way from Malaysia to share that meant a lot to us as an organization. How do we continue to tell that story? So we actually allowed him to share his story to be a part of our diversity council meeting so that our council members can get more comfortable and know that our guests are pleased with what we're doing, but we've not done enough. Mm-hmm. Let me be very clear. We've come so far, but yet we have so far to go. We still have much more to do in this space, and we're not giving up, but we are pushing and challenging ourselves to think differently, not only for our guests, but also for our colleagues, and not for our colleagues, also for those yet to come into the future.
Yeah. So this session is also about giving kind of practical advice. So just to round up, what's like one thing that our guests here today can take away that kind of, for a brand that really wants to champion LGBTQ inclusion, what can they do to make sure that this clientele is feeling integrated? Anyone goes first.
I mean, I would say just use the resources that are out there. I mean, anyone that's attending this conference is doing that. If you're a corporation and you want your employees to learn more, go to Billy and Ed and hire them and let them come in and train your employees. But there's information and resources out there that is available to us.
We use our diversity heritage celebrations as cultural awareness and leadership capabilities, and Billy will be coming to speak to our colleagues on Monday for our Pride event in Chicago. It's taking those events to raise awareness and to educate people, but really move into action right away. At the end of each of our heritage celebrations, we're going into action planning. We've heard a lot today. We've heard some good practices. We've got some good stories. What are we going to do? It starts with us as individuals. It's Billy over here. Billy, thank you for coming. Let's shout out for Billy. It's great. Tristan meets Billy. Billy meets Tristan, so we can there. But I said this, it's getting involved. It's not sitting back and letting something happen without, it's time to be bold leaders. We've got to be bold in what we're doing. We can't sit back idle and let somebody be disrespected or somebody to be harmed in some way. I give an example of our CEO and the head of legal counsel. We were on a call recently, and there was a third party on the phone, and he kept talking over our legal counsel, who happens to be a woman, happens to be our executive sponsor of our Pride group. And our CEO put the phone on mute and says, "Didn't you just say that? Isn't he over talking you?" And I says, "Okay, real time moment, teachable moment." He took her power. Now you need to give her power back, and she'll take it from there. He went on the phone and corrected the gentleman in a very professional way. But that's what we have to do. When we see an injustice, when we see someone being treated wrong, we have to step up and speak out. I'm not saying put yourself in harm's way, right? But there's a time and place we are now. If we don't be courageous and be bold, we'll be leaving people behind.
My advice, would be inclusion. I'm really surprised when I still see so many suppliers who are, we're all here for a reason. And you have to ask yourself, what's that reason? And I find so many suppliers that still are out there going after saying we're gay welcoming, we accept everybody, we want everybody, but at the same time, I see nothing. I go into a website, I don't see myself. I don't see my community. I go into your collateral. I go into your pitches, your presentations, your ads you run in magazines. I see nothing. So I think you should all go back and take a look at your hotel, your cruise, wherever you're coming from, and saying, what are we doing today? can I make it better? And can I do more? But if you're not doing anything and you're here at this conference, you should really ask yourself why. And ask your hotel, your brand, why? And because we should all be inclusive. And if you are going, especially as the millennial market will continue to grow and things keep changing, marketing with a rainbow flag and having an initiative from a corporation means a lot to a lot of people, especially if you're a baby boomer or Gen X, because you're taking a stand. Millennials want to be included. They're going to be going in and want to see themselves with their straight friends, and you're advertising your marketing. But you know what? They're also going to want to take those big weddings just like their straight friends. And they're going to go shop around, and they're going to go to your website, and they're going to look on your website, and they're going to go to your celebration section, and they're going to look for themselves. And if they can't find themselves, they're going to go on to the next hotel, or they're going to go into the next venue. So my thing is that if you're going after this market, do something about it. Not just say we're gay welcoming or we're LGBT welcoming. Put your money where your mouth is. And I'm sorry to be so blunt on it, but I just kind of wanted to do that because we're all here for a reason, and we should be doing this.
I'm going to echo Rick's point, basically, but it is about inclusion. And again, starting small, that was my point from earlier. Start small, it's fine to start small, it's fine to make some mistakes. I think someone yesterday said about creating LGBT imagery and making sure you use LGBT models. It's okay if you can't, I think, as well. If you're doing it, at least you're doing it. Create some imagery, even if it's two guys who happen to be straight or it's two girls who happen to be straight, at least you're creating what shows that you're trying to do something. You may not be all the way there yet, you may not be fully authentic, but you're doing something. And that's a starting point. We talk to tourist boards all the time, and the tourist boards that don't have LGBT imagery, and it's 2019, I'm like, why don't you have LGBT imagery? Like, even just an image of a couple in your capital city. And there are so many tourist boards that don't yet, and it surprises me. And someone like Malta have done a very good job at turning their entire perception of their country around from a country that was very poorly perceived to something that's really well perceived. And they haven't done much to do that. It's been a very simple journey by creating imagery, making same-sex marriage legal, and changing gender off passports. And those are things that are big things, but actually they took stepping stones to get there. And starting small and making sure people feel welcome is really important.
Great. Well, we have 8 seconds left. Should we just sit here in silence for the rest of it?
3, 2, 1, 0.
The end. Yay!